Closing day arrived. My real estate agent had scheduled it for a Friday afternoon. Standard procedure, he told my parents. The buyers wanted to move in over the weekend. I arrived at the title company 30 minutes early. Daniel was with me along with our lawyer. Everything was prepared. Every document ready. Every signature line marked. My parents arrived right on time, looking older and more tired than I remembered. My mother's hair had more gray. My father's shoulders slumped in defeat. They didn't see me at first. They were focused on the title company representative, eager to get through the paperwork and collect their check. The representative began explaining the documents. My parents signed where indicated, barely reading the fine print. They were too anxious to be done with the process. Finally, the representative said, "And now we just need the buyers to sign." She gestured toward me. My mother looked up. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. My father's face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, shock, disbelief, and finally, something that looked like fear. "Hello, Mom." "Hello, Dad," I said calmly. "I'm buying your house." The silence in that office was absolute. Even the representative looked uncomfortable, suddenly understanding this was more than a standard real estate transaction. "What?" my mother finally managed. "You can't. You don't have that kind of money." I pulled out a certified check from my business account. "Actually, I do." My father found his voice. "This is a joke. Some kind of sick joke." "No joke," Daniel said. "The money's real. The sale is final. You signed the papers. We can contest this," my father said. "You tricked us." Our lawyer spoke up. "Actually, everything was disclosed properly. You accepted an offer from an anonymous buyer. The buyer's identity wasn't required to be revealed until closing. Everything is legal and binding." My mother's hands shook as she looked at the documents she'd just signed. "Why would you do this? Why would you take our house?" I reached into my bag and pulled out the framed $10 check. I set it on the table in front of them. "Do you remember giving this to me?" "Yes." "At my wedding. In front of all our family and friends. Do you remember what you said?" My mother's face went pale. "You said my wedding wasn't worth investing in," I continued, my voice steady and cold. "You said it was modest and you'd adjust it accordingly. You gave me $10, while you spent thousands on Victoria's wedding. On her honeymoon. On her car. On everything she's ever wanted." "That's different," my father said weakly. "Victoria needed support. And I didn't." "Yes. I didn't need parents who showed up to my graduation. Who acknowledged my scholarship. Who treated me like I mattered even a little bit." The room was silent. "This isn't about the money," I said. "It's about you finally understanding what you did. What you've always done." My mother tried a different approach. "We're your parents," she said, her voice breaking. "You can't just take our home. Think about all the memories. Your childhood. This is where you grew up." "You're right," I said. "I did grow up here. In the smaller bedroom because Victoria needed the big one. Wearing hand-me-downs because Victoria needed new clothes. Being invisible because Victoria needed attention. We treated you both fairly," my father insisted, but even he didn't sound convinced. Daniel spoke up. "With respect, sir, you gave your daughter $10 at her wedding. That's not fair. That's cruel." "We were going through financial difficulties," my mother said. "No, you weren't," I corrected. "You just spent $8,000 on Victoria's honeymoon." "No, because she posted the receipts on social media. You weren't struggling. You just chose not to spend money on me." The title company representative cleared her throat uncomfortably. If everyone's ready, we can complete the transaction. Please, my mother said desperately. Please don't do this. We'll lose everything. I looked at her, this woman who'd never once put me first, who'd never acknowledged my achievements, who'd made me feel worthless my entire life. You're not losing everything, I said. You're losing this house. The same way I lost your support, your pride, your basic respect. The difference is I survived. Built something. And now I have what you took for granted. I signed the final documents. Daniel signed. Our lawyer notarized everything. The representative handed my parents their check. The check my parents received was enough to pay off their debts and leave them with a small amount for a security deposit on an apartment. But it wasn't enough to maintain their lifestyle. They'd have to downsize significantly. Adjust their expectations. Just like they'd expected me to adjust mine my entire life. I'll give you 2 weeks to move out, I said. That's generous, considering you gave me $10. This is vindictive, my father said. This is revenge. No, I said. Revenge would be making you homeless. This is justice. There's a difference. My mother was crying now, mascara running down her face. What about Victoria? What will she think? Victoria will probably be upset that she can't use your house for her social media photos anymore, I said. But I'm sure she'll get over it. She always does. We left the title company office, with a deed to my childhood home in hand. Behind us, my parents sat in stunned silence, finally confronting the consequences of decades of favoritism. In the parking lot, Daniel turned to me. How do you feel? Thought about it. Empty, I said honestly. I thought I'd feel triumphant. But mostly I just feel sad that it came to this. You gave them every chance to treat you with basic decency, Daniel said. They chose not to. That's on them. He was right. I'd spent years hoping they'd change, hoping they'd notice me, hoping I'd finally be enough. The truth was, I'd always been enough. They'd just been too blind to see it. Moving day came 2 weeks later. I'd hired a professional moving company to help my parents pack and relocate to their new apartment. I wasn't cruel enough to make them struggle with it alone, but I wasn't helping personally either. I stood across the street, watching boxes being loaded into trucks. My mother emerged from the house carrying a photo album, her face drawn and exhausted. My father followed with a lamp, looking defeated. Victoria's car pulled up. She got out and immediately started crying, rushing to hug our mother. I watched them console each other, neither one acknowledging that they'd created this situation, through years of taking me for granted. My Aunt Barbara appeared beside me. I knew you'd be here, she said. I'm not hiding, I said. I have every right to watch them move out of my house. Your house, Barbara repeated. That must feel surreal. It feels exactly right, I said. They made their choices. Now they live with them. Victoria spotted me across the street. She marched over, her face red with anger. How could you do this to them? She demanded. They're our parents. How could they give me $10 at my wedding while you got everything? Countered. How could they skip my graduation for your pageant? How could they ignore me my entire life? Victoria stepped back, clearly not expecting me to fight back. You're being dramatic. Am I? I pulled up her social media on my phone. Here's your Maldives honeymoon they paid for. Here's your new car. Here's your designer clothes. Now show me one thing they ever gave me. She couldn't. Victoria's anger faltered. For the first time, she seemed to actually see me. Not as the invisible older sister, but as a person who'd been systematically overlooked. I didn't know, she said quietly. Yes, you did, I said. You just didn't care because it benefited you. That's not fair. Neither is giving someone $10 at their wedding, while spending thousands on yours, I said. But here we are. Victoria looked back at our parents' loading boxes, then at me. What do you want from them? Nothing, I said honestly. I don't want their apology, or their acknowledgement, or their love. I spent too many years wanting those things. Now I just want them to understand that actions have consequences. So you bought their house to punish them. I bought their house because I could afford it and they couldn't, I corrected. The punishment is them finally seeing that the daughter they dismissed built something they couldn't. Victoria had no response to that. She turned and walked back to our parents, leaving me standing with Aunt Barbara. You've become formidable, Barbara said with something like pride in her voice. I've become myself, I just stopped letting them define who that was. The moving trucks finally pulled away. My parents got into their car to follow. My mother looked back at the house one final time, and I saw her face crumple with the weight of what she'd lost. Not just a house, but the respect of a daughter she'd never valued. I waited until the street was empty before walking up to the house. My house now. I unlocked the front door with the new keys and stepped inside. The space felt different already. Emptier without their furniture, but somehow lighter. The shadows of my childhood were still there, the marks on the wall where Victoria's height had been measured yearly, while mine was ignored. The scuff on the floor from the time I dropped my science fair project, and they'd called me careless instead of helping me fix it. But those were just shadows. They couldn't hurt me anymore. Daniel joined me inside. Want to look around? We walked through every room. The kitchen where I'd learned to cook, because my mother was always too busy with Victoria's activities. The living room where I'd done homework alone, while my parents attended Victoria's performances. My old bedroom, smaller and darker than Victoria's, where I dreamed of a different life. We're going to change everything, I said. New paint. New floors. Make it ours. Our fresh start, Daniel agreed. We stood in what used to be my parents' bedroom, looking out the window at the neighborhood. Kids were playing in yards. Families were having dinner. Life continued, indifferent to the small revolution that had just occurred in this house. Do you think they'll ever understand? Daniel asked. Probably not, I said. People like them rarely do. They'll find a way to make themselves the victims. Tell everyone I was cruel and ungrateful. Let them, Daniel said. Everyone who matters knows the truth. We left the house locked up, and returned to our apartment. Tomorrow we'd start planning renovations. Tonight, I needed to process everything that had happened. I sat on our couch with the framed $10 check in my hands. This small piece of paper had driven me for 5 years. It had fueled every long night, every difficult decision, every moment I wanted to give up. Are you going to keep it? Daniel asked. Thought about it. Part of me wanted to throw it away, burn it, eliminate this reminder of their cruelty. But another part recognized its value. Yes, I said. But not here. I'm going to put it in the house. In a shadow box in my office. As a reminder of where I came from and what I overcame. That's powerful, Daniel said. It's honest, I corrected. I'm not pretending it didn't hurt. I'm not pretending I've completely healed. But I'm also not letting it define me anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Mom's really upset. She's saying you've always been jealous of me. That this is all about envy. I stared at the message. Of course that's what they'd tell people. Easier to blame me than examine their own behavior. I typed back. I was never jealous of you. I was hurt by how they treated me. There's a difference. Victoria didn't respond. But she didn't need to. I'd said what needed saying. Whether she understood was her choice. The renovations took 3 months. We gutted the interior, keeping only the structure. Every room was transformed. The kitchen became open and modern. The bedrooms were repainted in colors I'd always loved. The living room got new windows that flooded the space with light. My old small bedroom became my home office. I had custom shelves built for my business awards and achievements. The $10 check hung in its shadow box on the wall, visible every time I sat at my desk. Daniel called it my motivation wall. I called it my truth wall. We moved in on a Saturday morning in April, exactly 5 years after my wedding. The timing felt significant somehow. 5 years from humiliation to triumph. 5 years from worthless to worthy. 5 years from invisible to successful. And Barbara helped us unpack. "Your parents know you're moving in today," she said. "I ran into your mother at the grocery store. She asked if I'd been inside yet. What did you tell her?" "That it's beautiful. That you've made it your own. That they'd never recognize it." "Good," I said. "That's exactly what I wanted." Victoria showed up unannounced that afternoon. She stood on the porch, looking uncomfortable. "Can I come in?" I considered saying no, but curiosity won. "Sure." She walked through the house slowly, taking in all the changes. "It doesn't look like our house anymore," she said finally. "It's not your house," I said. "It's mine." Victoria turned to face me. "I've been thinking about what you said. About how they treated us differently. And you were right. I didn't see it because I benefited from it. But you were right." It was the closest she'd ever come to an apology. Not quite taking responsibility, but acknowledging the truth. "Thank you for saying that," he said. "Mom and Dad are never going to admit they were wrong," Victoria continued. "You know that, right? They'll go to their graves believing they did nothing wrong." "I know. So why did you do all this? If you knew they wouldn't change." I gestured around the renovated house. "Because I changed. Because I needed to prove to myself that I could succeed despite them, not because of them. This house isn't about punishing them. It's about reclaiming the space where I learned to be invisible, and turning it into a place where I'm finally seen." Victoria nodded slowly. "I think I understand. We weren't going to be close. Too much had happened, too many years of imbalanced treatment. But maybe we could be cordial. Maybe someday we could be honest with each other." After she left, Daniel found me in my new office, sitting at my desk, looking at the $10 check on the wall. "Still worth keeping?" he asked. "Absolutely," I said. "It reminds me that other people's assessment of my worth has nothing to do with my actual value." "Deep thoughts for a Saturday," he teased. "Earned thoughts," I corrected. 6 months after moving in, Prestige Events won a regional business award. The ceremony was covered by local news. My photo appeared in the business section of the newspaper, standing in front of my company logo, holding the award plaque. The article mentioned my rise from humble beginnings to becoming one of the area's most sought-after event coordinators. It quoted clients praising my professionalism and creativity. It detailed my company's growth and future plans. My parents saw it. I know because Aunt Barbara told me they'd been at her house when the newspaper arrived. My mother had stared at my photo for a long time before putting the paper down without comment. They never called to congratulate me. But I didn't expect them to. What mattered was that the evidence of my success was undeniable now. Not just to them, but to everyone who'd witnessed my humiliation at that wedding reception 5 years ago. The same people who'd heard my father dismiss my modest celebration had now read about my thriving business in the newspaper. I framed the article and hung it next to the $10 check in my office. 2 sides of the same story. The beginning and the continuation. Not the ending, because my story was still being written. Daniel and I hosted our first dinner party in the house that weekend. We invited Aunt Barbara, Heather, and a few close friends who'd supported us through the years. We ate in the dining room, where I'd once sat silently, while Victoria received all the attention. Now it was filled with people who genuinely valued me. To new beginnings, Heather toasted, raising her glass. And to getting everything you deserve. To justice, Aunt Barbara added with a knowing smile. To us, Daniel said, looking at me. To building something real. I raised my glass, looking around the table at faces that reflected genuine affection and respect. This was what family should feel like. Not perfect, but honest. Not conditional, but steadfast. Later, after everyone had gone home, I walked through the quiet house one final time before bed. Every room told a new story now. Stories of my choosing. Stories where I wasn't invisible, or second best, or worth only $10. I stopped in my office and looked at that framed check one last time. My parents had meant it as dismissal. They'd meant it to show me my place in their hierarchy of love. Instead, they'd given me clarity. They'd shown me exactly who they were, and freed me from the burden of trying to earn their approval. That $10 check had been the catalyst for everything that followed. Every late night working, every risk taken, every moment of doubt overcome. In trying to diminish me, they'd accidentally taught me the most valuable lesson of all. My worth wasn't determined by their inability to see it. I turned off the office light and went upstairs to the master bedroom, the same room my parents had occupied, now completely transformed into a space that reflected Daniel's and my taste. We'd removed every trace of them, just as I'd removed their power to hurt me. You okay? Daniel asked from the bed, looking up from his book. Better than okay, I said. I'm finally home. Not in the building, though that was satisfying. But home in myself. Home in the knowledge that I'd taken the worst thing my parents had done to me and transformed it into the foundation of my success. Some people might call what I'd done revenge. They might say buying my parents' house was vindictive or cruel. But those people didn't understand what it meant to spend your entire life being told you weren't enough, only to prove you were more than enough all along. This wasn't revenge. Revenge would have been making them suffer, for suffering's sake. This was justice. This was natural consequences. This was them finally understanding that dismissing someone doesn't make them disappear, it makes them determined. I climbed into bed beside Daniel, who set his book aside and pulled me close. Tomorrow, I had 3 client meetings and a site visit for a major corporate event. Next month, I was coordinating a wedding for the daughter of a prominent local family. Next year, I planned to expand prestige events into a second city. My parents had given me $10 and expected me to accept that as my worth. Instead, I'd built a business, bought their house, and created a life they never imagined possible for the daughter they'd overlooked. The $10 check would stay on my office wall, not as a wound but as a trophy. Proof that sometimes the people who underestimate you give you the greatest gift of all, the burning desire to prove them catastrophically wrong. And I had. Every day, in every success, in every moment of peace in this house that was now mine, I continued to prove it. Justice, it turned out, didn't always look like punishment. Sometimes it looked like a daughter who refused to stay small, who built something magnificent from scraps, who turned humiliation into motivation, and emerged victorious, not because she destroyed her parents, but because she built herself. That was the real revenge, becoming so successful, so fulfilled, so genuinely happy, that their opinion of me no longer mattered at all. I fell asleep that night in my house, in my life, in my hard-earned peace, knowing that the girl who'd received a $10 check at her wedding had grown into a woman who could buy the entire house, where she'd once felt worthless. And that was worth more than any amount of money my parents could have given me. What would you have done differently? Share your thoughts in the comment box. Subscribe to this channel for more revenge stories.